so we know that it's going to be there when we get outside and we see it. We know that the sky is always there. It's constant. It's something that is the same no matter where we are. We might live in this area of Missouri, but we know that when we travel to Nashville, Tennessee, or we know that when we travel overseas, the one constant thing that we can always count on is there's a sky. Right? There's a sky. Now the other thing that we can always count on are some things like this, like the sun will rise and the sun will set. Now, depending on where you are in the world, it might be different than what you're used to. But for the most part, in most places, the sun will always rise and the sun will always set. When's the last time you stopped and looked up at the sky? Was it recently? Yesterday? Did you see it this morning? Sometimes I think the answer might be, I have to stop and think about when's the last time I really stopped and looked at the sky. So this past week, I don't want to talk about it too much because it wasn't good. I was gifted tickets to the Cardinals game on Wednesday. I did not win, but we're not going to talk about that. The funny thing was that I found is I went with a couple of pastor friends of mine, and that's where I got the free tickets, was from one of them. And we were sitting there, and we were watching the ball game, and here I am. I like to look. I like to people watch, and I like to see what's going on. You don't want to miss the wave when it comes around either, you know? And so I like to look up and pay attention to what's going on every once in a while. And here we have two fighter jets. They come across Busch Stadium right in the two. They bank real hard around the whole stadium. I'm like, they're trying to read the score or something, you know? And so my pastor friend's like yelling at something that's happening at third base, you know, and I'm not paying attention to that. I'm like, dude, look. He goes, whoa. He was amazed by it, right? He looked up and was more amazed and calmed down by what was happening in the sky than the terrible things that were happening there. Right? But we need to do that sometimes. I think sometimes we need to, as Christians, just look up at the sky and go, whoa. God did that for you and for me. Whoa. I don't know about you, but every once in a while I think about that and my mind is blown that God has created everything in this world that is good for you and for me. And then God has gone one step further and said, take care of it. And help it to be good. Friends, when's the last time we really looked up at the sky? I found myself yesterday at the golf tournament, which was wonderful. It was fun. Hard work, but fun, right? I got to meet so many different types of people. And yet they were all there for one cause, right? Kids. They realize that kids are hungry in our county and in our school district. And all walks of life, all types of faith or non-faith, came together for one goal, one purpose, and that's to feed kids who are hungry. Right? And sometimes I found myself so busy in the task set before me, I forgot to look up and pay attention to that. And then I got chauffeured around on a golf cart for a while. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. And I got to meet some of these people and talk with them and joke with them and have fun with them. And I realized, wow, the kingdom of God is before me. When's the last time we looked up and realized that God is in the midst of everything that's happening? The last time we looked up and just went, whoa. And so we have dominion. By By definition, dominion means sovereignty or control. Typically, nowadays, dominion is viewed as a word that doesn't have necessarily a good feeling to it, but has kind of a negative connotation to it. Because no one wants to be dominated, right? And so the dictionary teaches us what words mean, but so does our experiences. So I want you to consider, for instance, any of you have dandelions in your yards? You ever tried to kill those things off? Doesn't work too well, does it? But dandelions, we associate dandelions as a weed, right? And so a weed is this by definition. It's a wild plant growing where it is not wanted and in competition with cultivated plants. And so this definition is based on human interaction with weeds. A weed is where a human does not want it. But God created dandelions. Dandelions are important. And since God created dandelions, it means that they grow when conditions are right for them to grow. But people consider dandelions weeds. But dandelions are a food source for bees. A food source for animals. And believe it or not, friends, they're not too bad when they're fried up. Yes, it's okay for humans to eat the flowers. They're high in vitamin C. How about that? But fried makes them taste better. But they serve a purpose. They're here for good. They are good. And yet we consider them weeds. And so here we have this dilemma with dandelions. We try to get rid of them, right? They are pretty, and they can be a source of joy when they begin to seed for children as they pick them up and they watch the seeds scatter into the wind, right? And when children hear adults say that dandelions are weeds, then all of a sudden children start to associate dandelions, these beautiful flowers that they pick and they put in Dixie cups and they hand them to mom or to grandma. They start to associate these beautiful things that they think are wonderful in the world with something that is unwanted. Poor dandelions. Because we have established our dominion over them. Now, I don't expect that we're all just going to let dandelions run rapid in their yards. But you see what I'm saying? Sometimes we take something that God has created and is good and wonderful and beautiful in this world, and because we don't want them, we establish who has control over them, don't we? And unfortunately, friends, sometimes it's us that takes control over the good things in life and kills them off, or continually tells others it's not good. What does dandelions have to do with dominion? The definition of dominion we've already talked about, sovereignty or control, but the meaning has to do with what we know of dominion passed on from generation to generation to generation. In the book of Genesis, human beings were given dominion and responsibility to take care of the earth that is around us, that we are sitting on right now. We were given dominion to take care of it. It's ours. A gift from God. Dominion was given to humanity before sin ever existed. So what is the definition of dominion in the God-made perfect world? Remember, friends, we were given dominion over the earth before sin entered the world. And so good dominion is good. Take care of things. Don't expel good things. Don't get rid of good things. Don't stomp out good things. Take care of good things. How? How are we to be made in God's image? If we are constantly stomping out what's good. the place where God created something and it wasn't good. God does not create bad or evil or wrong or ugly. God creates, and it is called good. And when God created human beings, God said it was very good. Very good. So what's exploitation mean? What's exploitation mean? Does it have a positive or a negative connotation for you? Positive or negative? Negative, right? Mostly people say exploitation is a negative thing, right? So if you go to your dictionaries, or just go to dictionary.com, it defines exploit as this: a striking or notable deed. Huh? What? Huh? That doesn't sound negative, does it? Exploitation is defined as use or utilization, especially for profit, for saturation. But it's notable. Self-utilization. So last week we talked about the mountains. Remember that? There's mountains talking about mountains. Talking about Mount Zion and how it's in the middle and it's surrounded by this great protection and this great care of God, and how we are this mountain and God is with us in and through everything that we are going through in our lives. So we talked about these mountains, and mountains are ecosystems, and there are homes of plants and birds and amphibians and humans, and some mountains are exploited, right? Some mountains are even blown up to make money. You see where they're clearing off the mountaintops, boom, like this, and all of a sudden, what used to be a peak, there is no longer a peak, and they become exploited so they might make money with no regard to the life that depends on them. And so then we have in the Bible this place where the sky shows up. There's some mountains, if you climb to the top, you feel like you're in the sky, right? Looking down on the clouds. So we have this place in the Bible where the sky shows up, and we find, all of a sudden we find ourselves looking at clouds and rainbows to serve as a covenant, and angels and a star announcing Jesus' birth, and heaven is torn apart at Jesus' baptism, and even, friends, some darkness. As Jesus dies on the cross, the whole sky turns black. The veil is torn. The sky speaks and tells us about its creator, God, in Psalm 19. It speaks and tells us about its creator, God, in Psalm 19. And so we live in North America, and we've talked about this, but wherever we go, the sky is there. The sky is there. Verses 4 through 6 really tend to make me smile. They say this: the sun has a purpose and it does it joyfully. It has a path and it parades itself, providing heat, as mentioned in the first week. But God not only created what we see, but God also created the systems that give life and direction. God created systems that give life and direction. And verses 7 through 9 speak of these laws and these decrees and these precepts and commandments and fears. And they are mentioned after a stunning visual of the skies declaring God's glory. And this psalm then refers to more than God's words to us through Moses. It concerns the systems in which God has set the world to function. Friends, there is an important way things have to work in order for them to work. What happens if your internal body temperature increases 6 degrees? What happens?
You get sick.
Sweat. You are not feeling very good, that is for sure. Right? Hallucinations begin to happen. If it goes just a couple more degrees, friends, you could die. 10 degrees one way or another, and you no longer exist. That is pretty precise directions and laws and decrees and how our universe works. Imagine the earth rotating around the sun, just at a right axis, spinning a certain amount of revolutions around the sun in order to maintain and establish life. That's not an accident. It's Someone way smarter than me figured that out. God. In case you're wondering. I don't begin to understand, but I can begin to go, whoa. Whoa. If you look at Psalm 19, and I hope you will go back and look at it, I love how each 9 in this psalm is paired with a verb. The verbs are these: reviving, making, rejoicing, enlightening, enduring. Yeah! We can get behind those words. We can get behind those actions that God is declaring before us. It's a wonderful thing. And behind the ordinances in each of these verses, there's adjectives which are true and righteousness. These are all good things. And so we put them all together. And what we have here, friends, is a whole melting pot in Psalm 19 of nothing but good. Because God creates what? Good. Verses 10 and 12 show us what God says is to be sought after more than gold. And when we learn from them, they taste as sweet as honey, and we are rewarded. Doesn't this and shouldn't this make us want to know God more? Shouldn't this help us to want to explore God's Word more and more and more? That it should be sought after more than we seek after gold? And friends, I don't know about you, but if you work 8 hours a day, 12 hours a day, 16 hours a day, 20 hours a day, or if you're on a 48 to the 36-hour stint at the firehouse, whatever it might be, we are, in a way, searching after gold. Because we don't get happy when our paychecks don't show up. But how are we searching after gold while we're in those roles? Are we finding time to read God's Word? Are we finding time to invest in someone? To love someone? We should be excited about knowing God's Word. We should be seeking after it more than we seek after gold. And when we learn from it, you ever had honey straight off the comb? Oh, man. It's good. It's good. You hear that? It's good. So friends, I say all this to say, when have you stopped and said, "Whoa"? I hope and I pray that we find a time in our lives, each and every single day, where we can stop, for some of us, doing this. I don't know about you, but I've done this a few times. When we can stop, and this should be easy for those of us who are Cardinals fans watching the game. But we can stop putting our head down and working on the task, and the task only, and that's all there is before us. We can look up. We can say, "Whoa." Thank you, God, for your creation. Help me, Lord, not to lord over it so much so that I kill it out. Help me, Lord, to have dominion enough to know it is my responsibility to take care of it. It is my responsibility to love it. It is my responsibility to help those around me see the beauty that you have created before me. Thank you.